shaped by the fires of each new battle. We are forged and sharpened into what we must become for the fight ahead.
Hello everyone and welcome to my game review video, a requirement for the Computer Assisted Language Learning course taught by Dr. Intisar Sharif. As you can clearly see, this is not a language learning game. It is just a normal video game that you can find people playing on their preferred consoles, whether it's a PC, a PlayStation or an Xbox. The reason I chose such game is because I believe from personal experience that learning language becomes way more easier when it's fun and indirect, where the main objective isn't to learn English, rather learning and knowing the language becomes the means in which we navigate the game, connect with its players and community, understand tasks and how to achieve objectives, and understand the story. Learning English by using commercial video games is a thing to consider because the informal environment that the game provides doesn't pressure the students to have perfect English. It is a fun environment where nobody is being judged. You find yourself acquiring new words, vocabulary and phrases unconsciously in such an environment. So without further ado, let's delve into the game.
We called it The Traveler, and its arrival changed us forever. Great cities were built on Mars and Venus. Mercury became a garden world. Human lifespan tripled. It was a time of miracles. We stared out at the galaxy and knew that it was our destiny to walk in the light of other stars. But the Traveler had an enemy, a darkness which had hunted it for eons across the black gulfs of space. Centuries after our golden age began, this darkness found us. And that was the end of everything. But it was also a beginning.
So I'm going to try and cover just a tiny bit of the game's story because believe me, it is a very dense universe. As seen in the previous video, it's the year 2014, the world is approached by a weird sphere called the Traveler. From that day on, the world as we know it had changed forever. Humanity flourished, planets were inhabitants, but that wouldn't last long. Darkness had found us, found the light. Therefore Guardians, we the heroes of the story, were brought back to life as entities of the light, beings with magnificent powers, with no memories of our life before death, and just a small companion alongside us. Our mission was, and is, protecting those with no powers. But with such powers comes great responsibility, and obviously not all with power have used it for good. The game brings up many issues throughout its story that can be seen in real life. The music, the visuals, the voice acting, and the story of the game are all spectacular aspects. The game mixes many different elements together to create its own unique universe. Some themes of the game are science fiction, horror, action, mythology from all over the world. It's an apocalyptic end of humanity, evil versus good, light versus darkness, and all that's in between kind of universe. Destiny is an online multiplayer, mostly first-person shooter game. It also mixes a little bit of role-playing elements in the way you upgrade and modify your weapons and your character to make them suit your playstyle better. You play the game to level up your character, unlock new weapons and armor, and story tabs when you do a mission that is connected to the story. So, as you can see here, you start off by doing something very important in the game, creating your avatar, your guardian, you. Unlike many games, let's say Batman for example, where everybody playing the game will play as Batman. In the Destiny universe, there's many Guardians, and you just happen to be one of them, so creating your own character is crucial. This feature alone is actually what made me buy the game for the first time. Such a small feature actually made many players take ownership and feel way more connected to the story, because it feels way closer to the actual player. A huge number of players have made their own Guardian's backstory because the game doesn't give you as much information about your background. They just leave it open-ended for the player to play with. Many players who didn't like writing have actually written many fanfictions about their characters, therefore this could be a really good way to learn English, writing about your character. There's many different activities you can do in the game. There's Vanguard strikes, you get matched with 2 other Guardians, they can be total randoms or your friends. You basically select a strike, then the game gives you the story of why you're there, you kill monsters in the final boss, and you get your rewards. Then the Crucible. It has many different player versus player kind of activities. Guardians battle against each other to strengthen themselves. It is a very highly competitive game mode, so if you don't like stress, don't play that. We have Gambit, and we have public patrol missions on all accessible planets. We have raids, and they have always been the player's favorite. It is the end game content. They require you to highly cooperate with your teammates in real time, meaning that you need to speak to them with a mic. And they have very complicated game mechanics that requires everyone to know what they're doing. They're basically puzzles. Anyhow, any activity will help you level up and get weapons and armor. Weapons and armor is actually where a big majority of the game's vocabulary is. I always find myself learning new words from their names. Some weapons and armor even have their own lore tab that gives the players background of the gear's history, so there's a lot of depth here. Getting your gear feels way more exciting with all these interesting names. So here's some of the vocabulary that I learned over the past 3 weeks of playing. I haven't played the game for months, so when I got back for this assignment, I was presented with a new season, a bunch of new weapons and gear, and new lore tabs. So I've got this weapon called stochastic variable. I've honestly never heard about this word before, so I went to my dictionary app and searched for it. It apparently means something random and involving probability. So a casque is a piece of armor for the head. So palindrome is a word that reads the same backward and forward. To lament is to regret, mourn, or grieve strongly. A chaperone is a person who accompanies and looks after another person or group of people. So when I first got this weapon, I was like, why would you call a weapon a rat king? Does it make any sense? And of course my curious mind led me to go search it on Google, and I wish I didn't do that. Prometheus is a character in Greek mythology. Sturm und Drang, Storm and Stress, was a proto-romantic movement in German literature and music. Definitely going to spend some time exploring this movement more. So as we can see, the game loves referencing real life things, and I absolutely love every time I find out the meaning behind these stuff. Crown of Tempest is referencing the play Tempest by Shakespeare. The word tempest itself is a new word to me. It means violent storm, and it has a really beautifully written lore tab here. This is written that you may understand the time of kings is long since gone from this world. Yes, their reign does linger, these shallow, frightened, aged men clinging to their grand delusions of relevance in a world that has long since passed them by. But their reign is a lie, a fleeting charade that will crumble beneath the weight of their greed. In the end, though, they may conquer the lands and seas and the fragile flesh upon which they trample. Their empires will collapse and their graves will beckon, and the crowns of old will find new heads to bear the weight of their power, and the strong will be made to suffer as their weakness is brought to light. In my opinion, this game knows how to keep you very engaged. Something very important that is keeping it alive is the fact that the story is evolving and growing as we're speaking right now, since its release in late 2014. Secrets and mysteries are finally being revealed. The developers have promised the game and the story will definitely continue until 2024. After that, it may continue, it may not. The developers are very close to the players' community because they themselves are fan and players. They are genuinely excited about the game itself, and it's always nice to see that. The game keeps you engaged towards its universe even if you don't play regularly. Many players quit playing the game for reasons, but you still find a big majority of them keeping up closely to the story that's being released. The high engagement rate on the lore of the story is thanks to YouTubers who are literally so devoted and passionate about the lore that they made explaining and analyzing it their everyday paying job. YouTuber My Name is Bife is the best example for a lore YouTuber. I listen to him as he would a podcast or an audiobook. I get to keep up with a fun story that I really love and at the same time get my daily dose of listening to English material that I actually feel excited about. The writers of the game try their best to release as much lore as possible constantly. They are even about to release a physical book that contains all the lore and stories that they have previously released on their website and the game. Of course, everyone has different tastes, not everyone is going to like the same thing, but I would definitely recommend giving this game a try. The best thing about it is that the base game is absolutely free. If you have a good PC, an Xbox or a PlayStation, you can download it from the store. Have fun discovering the 3 different classes, each one has different supers and skill set. If you like heavy-hitting characters, you might like to be a Titan. If you like to be a sneaky, agile character, you might like to be a Hunter. If you like majestic, wise, mysterious witches, you might be a Warlock, which is my all-time favorite. And of course, you don't even have to play the game if you're not a gamer. You can just take a look at the story tabs. They're available online. Read a bunch of them. Listen maybe to some My Name is Bife videos, and yeah. Yes, because the game makes it easy to understand some vocabulary. For example, you equip gear by choosing the option equip. You can obviously understand what equip means because there is immediate visual representation of the verb. When you see all the other guardians, you can press on their avatar and be presented with actions like join fire team, invite, send friend request, inspect guardian, view profile, inspect clan, etc. Or when you find a loot crate and it says collect loot, you have an instant visual representation of what all these words mean. And this is what Dr. Stephen Krashen said in his most popular YouTube video. We only ever acquire language when we understand it, and visual representations hardly ever fail to do that. I think everybody agrees that visual learning is the most powerful form of both teaching and learning. Just memorizing words from a dictionary with no context or without understanding is never going to be an efficient way of acquiring a language. The game is very interesting both visually and in the narrative. The concept, in my opinion as someone who loves fantasy, science fiction and mythology very much, is phenomenal. The game complexity ranges greatly between activities you choose to do, but if you've ever played shooter games before or any video game, you're not going to have a hard time understanding the basics. The game makes sure to give you detailed instructions when you first play it, and it isn't difficult to follow. I've seen players as young as 8 years old play it, but it's always better to follow the game's age rating, which is 13 years old. Teenagers and adults are usually the ones that will really love this game because it requires you to understand stuff. Yes, it can be a very cool starting point to get students into reading by connecting a very cool, visually attractive game to reading. Even if you don't want to play the game itself at all, you can always extract some interesting lore and stories that are available online and give it to students to explore. Destiny can be treated as a game, as a movie franchise, or even a novel. With the gameplay amazing cutscenes and beautifully written stories, we can see many different writing styles throughout all the different lore books of the game. They range from very simple, easily understandable writing styles to almost poetic writing, ones that are highly scientific that use physics and space science terminology, so there's almost something for everyone. So this is the end of the video. Thank you everyone for listening. My name has been Shada, a student at Tripoli University Faculty of Education. As you can see, I really love this game, and sharing it with you guys was amazing. The editing was a pain, to be honest. It was on my phone, but this is an assignment that I really enjoyed. Thank you, Dr. Intisar Shri, for giving us this assignment, and I hope you learned something today. As a conclusion, learning English should be fun. Do it with something that you love. Learn the language through something you love. Learn it through it and for it, whether it's a game, a movie, a novel, anything.